Hi, welcome to Parent Inc. This is a space where we don't just talk about parenting as a role, but something we are constantly learning, unlearning, and growing through. And right now, parenting feels a little different as well. There's more uncertainty, there's a lot happening beneath the surface, especially for our tweens and our teenagers. For the first time, we're also hosting the Parenting podcast virtually. But again, as they say, uncertain times call for new ways of showing up because conversations like these and the support that comes with them should never take a back seat. Today, we are making sense of what this phase is asking us as parents. I'm joined today by Louise Hurley. She's Dubai-based trauma-informed conscious parenting coach and the founder for Parent Prosper Coaching on Instagram. With over 20 years of experience working with children and families, she brings a deep sense of understanding of behavior, emotional regulation, and parent child relationships and dynamics. She's also become one of the most trusted voices for many parents today, with her work gaining strong momentum and recognition, especially in times like these. Louise, so good to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And with this, we also have, let me introduce our second guest for today, Dr. Pooja Mahesh. She's Associate Professor and Head of Media and Communication at Symbiosis International University, Dubai. Just like Louise, she has over 2 decades of experience. She brings both academic and deeply lived perspective as a parent to two teenagers. She's someone who interacts with young people every single day, even through her work here in Dubai, which makes her lens especially relevant in times like these. Pooja, very, very excited and good to have you here. Welcome,
Thank you.
ladies.
Thank you.
So, what we are seeing now isn't just about teens acting out or disconnecting. It's often about navigating lack of control, shared spaces, and emotional overload without always having the tools to process it. And as parents, we're trying to respond to something we didn't really grow up experiencing ourselves. So, Luis, I think I'm going to start with you now. Um, how do you think that the lack of personal space impacts emotional regulation in teens or tweens right now?
Well, we're certainly seeing it in full force right now. I think we first have to acknowledge that adolescence is already a period of neurological renovation. So the brain is rewiring for independence and identity and social belonging. And a situation like the one we're currently in, where there's political unrest, where there is online learning, where there's uncertainty, exams being cancelled, being at home more, teens and
Yeah.
adolescents, they're losing two things. They're losing predictability and they're losing autonomy. And when those routines are collapsing, we're definitely going to see it. And we're seeing lots of common behaviors, and we can get into that, but we're probably seeing a level of disrespect. We're seeing maybe perceived laziness or moodiness. And this is putting the whole family system under pressure. And I think we're used to maybe our younger children having tantrums or having meltdowns, and we know what those look like. But the same level of dysregulation is happening with adolescents. It just
Yeah.
looks different. It's now it's an eye roll or it's a slammed door.
Oh yes, I think we all have experienced the eye rolls and the slam doors. So what is actually happening underneath the irritability or the withdrawal? A lot of parents take it as disrespect, and we end up comparing our kids to other kids or how we were at a point when we were of their age. So could you just shine some light on it, because that's going to be wonderful for parents to understand what's actually happening underneath.
Well, I think the most important things that I would like parents to come away with here is a basic understanding of the nervous system. And the question we need to be asking ourselves constantly, and about ourselves too, by the way, is what state is my child's nervous system in? What state is my teen's nervous system in? So there are three rough states. You have the regulated state, where your teen can be engaged and talking and cooperative. I always liken that to, if I'm able to have a back and forth conversation with somebody and share a joke and laugh genuinely, I'm regulated. I can't fake that. That's something that comes from within. But if we step out of our window of tolerance, we tip over into either a fight or flight
Yeah.
response or a shutdown. So, what we might be seeing right now for teens and adolescents that are in fight or flight is irritability, being argumentative, and being reactive for seemingly small things. Touchy, I would say, or shutdown, which can be withdrawn or quiet or
Yeah.
avoiding conversations. So I think what parents need to keep in mind right now is that the goal is to support regulation and not control behavior. And I think it's very easy to step into the realm of, I need to control this behavior,
Yeah.
especially when there's exams looming and we're feeling the pressure. It's not like they're really small. There's missed learning happening and lots of pressure for everyone. So I think we need to be really intentional about how we're interacting with our teens and preteens right now.
Pooja, that brings me to you. I mean, you're a mother housing a teen right now. And of course, in your daily navigation with your work, when you're taking online classes for, the same age group teenagers, what kind, are you facing any of these things, especially at home as a parent?
Yeah, definitely. Early morning routine for all of us as mothers begin with, just slamming the door and just knocking. And then, the door sometimes opens, sometimes you're barging in, and then you're reminding that the class is beginning, and, they are half awake, half asleep, or they're just, it's just registration. So we can just do the registration and then we can sleep. So
Yeah.
then, sometimes depending on how good sleep you have had, you can smile on that. And sometimes you're like, how can you do that? So the mother and the teacher in me yearns to have the routine back because I feel routine is something that, brings a system in life. I would not say, I agree to very much what Louis said that, we should not be authoritative.
Yeah.
Yes, as parents, we don't want to be one. But I believe the routine helps us keep calm because we go on our routine and they are on their routine. So it's quite helpful. But being housed, both of us being housed and then, they not following the routine, it's difficult for me as a teacher and a parent to see that. Similarly, if I talk about being an educator, you know, I think all educators will agree to that. We start our class, guys, can you put your video on? Guys, can you put your video
Yeah.
on? And, so most of the times we are just speaking to the screen. So sometimes I feel we should have good screensavers and all, which can be a savior for us so that we can continue our classes like that. So yeah, that's how it is.
I think it's much easier to set that routine with the younger kids. I think as they grow older, especially with tweens and teens, it's difficult to kind of get them into a set routine just because we are the ones setting it. You know, so that is there. And Louise, coming back to you, when there is sibling dynamics involved, um, what is your take on that? What is actually happening? Because it's just like a world war inside the house now as well. They don't like their things to be touched. They don't like their place to be touched. They don't even like to be looked at them. Like, there are some kids who go like, this person is looking at me, invading my looking privacy space or whatever. So what do you have to say for that?
Yes, yeah, it's really happening right now, isn't it, between siblings? Um, and it happens more during a disruption like this because you have reduced personal space. We're literally in each other's faces right now. There's emotional overspill from the stress, and there's competition for parental attention as well because there's different needs going on. And there's also lack of normal peer outlets, which becomes increasingly important as children get older. We always see a shift as children move into their preteen and teen years to really move towards their peers. And I mean, that's a whole other story, but they're not getting it now. So when preteens and teens are dysregulated, their tolerance for their siblings drops dramatically. So I think one of the things parents are probably finding themselves doing now is mediating. I think what you said earlier, like the UN, and getting in there and being Switzerland in all of this. And it's really hard as a parent not to take sides in certain clashes, because sometimes you absolutely see who the aggressor is, and you really want to call them out in it. But at a time like this, when there is such tension, we really need to be facilitating those talks with each other and getting them to hear each other out. And that's a big ask. And
Yep.
depending on who you have in front of you as well, you might have a little child and a big child. So yeah, it's complicated.
I totally agree, Pooja. This is this time, but I'm sure you've raised two teenagers. You're raising one. I think one of them is already out of the teenage, or is she still in?
Yes, yes, she is out of teenage now.
She,
She's 20.
yeah, she is. But how did you kind of balance this out? I'm sure there
So,
must have been a lot
so
of teen rivalry going at your place as well.
yes, yes, yes. So definitely, when both of you were talking about it, I was way back during the COVID times, when both of them were at home. So I was having my online class, both of them at home, one with laptop, one with iPad. The fight between the laptop and the iPad, first it begins with that. Then, the online games that they are playing. And COVID times were much different than these. Somehow, like I personally feel these times are much better because at least the kids can step out and meet, at least their friends in the community. They can go
Right.
to the park. But during COVID times, it was very tough because we weren't meeting each other. We were not sure of who is the person who could be passing on the infection. So yes, it was tough, but you know, I think in times like these, it helps in terms of watching things together at times, so that some of the distraction is there. So we would generally sit along and watch TV together, so that during that time, at least all of us together can release the stress because all of us are fond of comedy. But yeah, um, that was also a moment of fight as well because one would want to watch something else and the other would want to watch something else. And you, as a parent, you don't know about what they are talking about because their taste and our tastes are very different because of the generation gap. So, yes, it's a struggle every day, very much. But I would say, learning from what I'm experiencing now, I think I'm blessed to have a kid who's a sports person because as a sports person, you develop a discipline. So, because of that discipline that she has, I think I'm blessed. It's easy to manage because she has her own time in terms of going to gym or doing exercise or playing cricket. So I mean that way is it's good, I would say.
Well, you are lucky to have it that way, but I don't think a lot of parents do get that,
Absolutely.
advantage. And I think that there's it's always escalated, especially Louise. If I come back to you on this, the parent response gap is what I'm talking about. So where are parents unintentionally escalating the situations? Because it's always after the escalation is done that we realize that, oh, maybe we could have done this in a better way, or we could have handled it better.
Yes, well, I think the number one thing that parents do is they forget that they should be leading with relationship at this time. I mean, you should always lead with relationship when you're parenting, but especially for the teen years, because you're no longer really the guide. You are you are not the friend either. You still have boundaries, but the relationship is pivotal. So if you're heightened and if you're escalated, they will take that cue and they will they will ramp up.
I'm sure. And, with the entire uh, uncertainty, the academic uncertainty there is with exams and stuff, Pooja, how is it? I just wanted to know, as a parent, with the ongoing exam uncertainty and even as an educator, are you seeing any kind of shift in motivation or engagement with this age group?
Yeah, definitely. There is a whole lot of challenge, because now one of the most important thing is the generative AI which has come in. So
Right.
though you can see the kid is online, whether it be in terms of educator, when I see the students being online or my daughter, what the challenge is that are they really grasping? Are they really listening? Because as teachers, as educators, what we are trying to help them in terms of the exams and assessment as we are doing that online. We are making it assignment based, but
Mm-hmm.
how do we make sure that they are doing it on their own? They are learning it because we get the assignments on time, but then most of it can be generative AI, which is helping them. So it is a challenge as an educator and as a parent both to help them understand that please use it only as an assisted tool and don't rely too much on that. If you will sharpen the saw, it's good for you. Similarly, sharpen your brain because that's going to help you in the long run. The prompt that you will give to the AI, that is only possible if you have sharpened your brain enough to give the right prompt. And at least
Correct.
you need to know that whatever output is coming from the generative AI, is it good enough? Is it right enough? So, to have that understanding, you need to learn. This is the time you have to learn. So that's the challenge as an educator, as a parent, definitely.
I think, as educators, you should all collectively start some workshops for us parents. Because if it is hard enough for you, imagine how hard would it be for us to kind of get to know the difference, that where the AI is coming into play and where it is not. Because half of the times, the answer that we get is it's all done, it's completed, but it's difficult for us to know what they're actually doing. And speaking of the uncertainty, they are always in a mood, right? Exam uncertainty is one. As a parent ambassador at my school, I have noticed a lot of parents calling me up and asking, they are always in a bad mood. If we try to talk to them, they are always, they say that you don't care about our future enough. We are having exam uncertainty. We cannot meet our peers. So, Louise, do you think that can you actually just I don't know, pacify would be the right word or not, but at least can you tell the parents out here that why are these things important, or what kind of role does it actually help? What kind of role does it actually have to regulate teens in their any which ways, this age group, in their normal development as well, like, because they're missing their peers, they have this uncertainty, the exams are being called off or postponed or even cancelled. Some of them were not very prepared. They haven't been very prepared throughout the year, but now they are trying to trying to kind of mark them on what they have already done. So there is a whole uh, thing going on where misbehavior is something, misconduct is something where parents get really worked up at.
Absolutely. I think it's really important for parents to not focus on the behavior, but rather focus on what may be lying underneath the behavior. We often see anger and we see lashing out, but underneath anger very often is fear. And I think a lot of our young people are, as you said earlier, in a situation that none of us were ever in before, and might have dabbled in this online learning situation in COVID, but now the stakes are higher. There's exams. Now they're being graded in a different way. Perhaps they were relying on a final exam, and now it's a more formative formative assessment. So
Yes.
the dynamics have completely changed. I would imagine that um, some students are in sheer panic right now. And I also imagine that some parents are in sheer panic. And really, it's very flippant to say it like this, but everybody needs to pause for a second and really engage in bigger picture thinking. There will be a way out of this. There will be, in 5 years' time, you will have gotten through this. You will have come out the other side. You will have gained and achieved all the things that you were meant to. It might not have followed the same course as you had planned, but at the moment when we're so fearful, both parents and students, we can't engage in rational thinking. That is an executive function that we cannot access if we're dysregulated. So it all goes back again to what can we do to try and maintain some level of calm. And by that, I don't mean let's all be absolutely passive and lula about the whole thing, and that's fine. And let's not be in denial about it. We're allowed to have our feelings. You're allowed to be angry slash scared slash fearful, but we need to talk about it and we need to gently challenge it, because we know from the research, if you have these big moments, if you're going through these times of immense stress, those are the moments that actually build resilience. And it can be hard when you're in the middle of that moment to feel like, well, I'm going to come out of this the other side and it's going to be fine, when you're in a sheer terror of panic. So the priority remains co-regulation. Even with we do it with younger children, they don't stop needing this when they're teenagers. I think sometimes our teenagers, they get bigger and they nearly look like grown men and women after a certain age, and we tend to think, wow, they've got this, they look so big and grown up. They don't. They really don't. Their brains are not fully developed until early to mid 20s, some say even more. And as humans, we need co-regulation. So we need to be moving into that supportive role. And if you as a parent are panicking and living from a place of sheer fear, then you need to put on your own oxygen mask first and have somebody, have a little word with yourself, have a little word with your spouse or your friend and say, right, I feel like I'm spiraling here. And I know if I'm spiraling, my teen is going to spiral. So what can we do? What support do I need to put in place for myself first so I can properly co-regulate with my child?
Can you suggest some co-regulation or regulation techniques for parents, or something that they can do together with their teens, which they agree to do too? Because with the younger kids, it's easier to sit with them, hold them, or hug them, or invite them out for a walk, or take them out. But with teens, often they come with a barrier.
Yes.
So just off your list or off your mind, or with your experience, can you maybe tell us a few tips that can be done as co-regulation with our teens and tweens?
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's as with everything, and sorry to say, it's going to look different for every child, but it is going to look different for every child. If I mean, you said you had a daughter who played cricket. That's something that you could absolutely, accompany her with or start chatting to her about. That's not going to work with another child. So you look at their interest, you step into their world. Just because you have a particular interest in this kind of music or that period in history, don't pull them over to where you are. You've got to do the legwork here, and you need to find something that you can engage in. If they're sitting playing Fortnite, as many teenage boys will be, and you might absolutely hate computer games, I'm sorry, but now you're going to have to grab a console and sit down next to them and say, go on, just teach me how to do it. And you have to lean over to their world. That's the first thing. The second thing is teens respond better to side-by-side conversations. So that's not a sit down, face to face, and I want to talk about XYZ. No, driving in the car, cooking together, walking, less eye contact. It's less confrontational. So it's less threat to the nervous system. And I think the other thing is, there are times where you're going to say the wrong thing and you're going to irk your child and they're going to explode and that's going to happen and that's really not an issue. There is no need to be tiptoeing around petrified of any kind of rupture. But what needs to happen is the repair after the rupture. I think parents often think that conflict damages relationships. It absolutely doesn't. Repair strengthens the attachment. And we know that the attachment needs to be really held in those teenage years. So come back, model the emotional maturity and say, right, I know that yesterday got heated between us. Personally, I wish I'd handled that differently. Take accountability. Don't get really stuck on that moment of disrespect where they called you lame or whatever it was they threw at you in terms of, an injury. Don't hold on to that. I think that's the other thing as well. It's not personal. It is dysregulation. And so interestingly, the ability to choose the correct words, to choose diplomatic words and a gracious way of expressing yourself is an executive function.
I
So
agree.
when people blurt stuff out, and we see it with adults as well, but when people blurt stuff out and when teens blurt stuff out, that is a surefire way of knowing, okay, this person is dysregulated. Do you accept disrespect? No, absolutely not. You don't have to. But you keep that in your mind. You try not to be mortally wounded by those interactions because you're trying to see what's underneath it. The regulation travels through relationships. So the fastest way to calm a dysregulated teenager is by you being calm. You're not going to be calm if you're very busy being insulted and offended all the time. So I think that's a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, that was some brilliant piece of advice, because I think a lot of us parents, we just take it too personally, too personal an attack. Bringing that point, Pooja, what are the daily friction points that, as parents and as you as a parent and even an educator, what are parents those daily friction points that you're facing with your teen or your set of teenagers that you are taking lessons of?
So generally, when it comes to, we are sometimes, hard pressed of work, because it's not that, we are stepping out and doing work. We all are at home. So already set of struggles are there at home, late breakfast to lunch to everything. And then you are managing your routine job. So those struggles are every day there, because you want that routine to be back so that you have your time to breathe. Because once you breathe nicely, the atmosphere at home will be good. So the daily struggle is that let the routine begin on time. There should be some routine in the house, but it's so difficult. But this takes me back to the COVID time when I had my elder one also with me. So I would like to bring here that it is not always that we as parents teach. We get to learn so much from our kids as well.
Mm.
So one day I was so worked up with the routine and everything. And I raised my voice. I said something, and she said, "Why are you being so salty?" For a moment, I was tongue-tied. I thought for a moment, and that salty word did stay with me. Like that day, I felt really bad, to be honest. But then I thought over it, and I was like, "Yeah, she is right in a way. Why am I being salty? Like, I mean, she is not a guinea pig that I'm venting out my stress on her." And therefore, I realized we need to have some coping mechanism uh, as parents, as educators. And therefore, I found that I started going for yoga. And now my younger one said, you better go to gym, start doing gym, because I mean they realize that as parents we are stressed. So if we
Yeah.
go out, we will release our we will get some happy hormones inside us, and that will, create a good atmosphere at home also. So I think it's not
Absolutely.
always that we teach them. There is so much to learn from them, from children as well.
I agree 100%. And talking about, Pooja, you just mentioned that there should be some structure, some routine. So, Louise, as a parent coach, as a parenting coach, uh, how can structure be introduced without rigidity? Because rigidity is something that we are definitely avoiding with this age group.
Yes, yes, rigidity is important to avoid, but at the same time, we know that um, children and older children as well, they need predictability and they need autonomy. So that's a
Mm.
funny one because if you're going to lay down the law and say, well, okay, we're going to eat at this time, we're going to do that at that time, they can very quickly feel like they're being managed or
Mm.
handled, which will trigger that response of, well, I don't want to be handled by you. So I think in order to honor their autonomy, I think their buy-in is really important. And I know we all know what a routine is, right? We know it's consistent wake up times. We're hopefully,
Right.
ideally, we're aiming for shared meals, which is getting harder and harder as society goes on because we're so busy. But we know that the small routines can regulate the brain. So we're aiming for that. But then I wonder, and it's something I often recommend to clients who are working with me in longer containers, that when you have older children, what's really super to do is have like a weekly meeting, literally where you sit down and you say, let's go through the week. How was it? What really worked this week? Air your grievances and come up with your praise and your gratitude. And ideally this should and technically could be started with very young children, but it's a form of, to me, it's a form of meta thinking, like you're really looking at how have things gone, and in those kind of routines, then you get to tweak all the time. Right, we really need a bit of structure, but you're telling me that this 7 a.m. alarm call that I'm giving you is really not working for you. Right, what's the wiggle room on that? How can we problem solve that? So that addresses their need for control. It gives them autonomy. It also honors, as I said, the predictability. And a huge thing is it allows them to feel seen. It allows them to have a voice, which is massively important for attachment. If I feel like somebody's just handing me down rules and instructions all the time, I will very quickly check out. So I really
Correct.
recommend, if you can manage it, and I know it's a push because we're all so busy to get us all around the same table, once a week, but if you can manage that and have it as a kind of reflective tool. It doesn't have to be formal, but it can be a way of saying, well, let's bring this up on Sunday when we chat because
Yeah.
you have a say here.
I think it also doubles as like a co-regulation technique, Uh, it might just, I don't know, bring down a lot of heat that has been created throughout the week.
Absolutely.
Another question that I was really intrigued at was that co regulation, what does it look like in a full household at this point?
Co-regulation is essentially where you are borrowing from somebody else's nervous system. And
Correct.
so we are hoping that you as the adult are in that engaged state. The state I talked about earlier where we can talk and chat and be engaged. So in order for the co-regulation to happen, you need to be in a certain way, which is why going to yoga, meeting your needs, making sure you're trying to get time for yourself is so critically important. We talk about self-care. This is why it's important. And co-regulation with a dysregulated teen or child, it can feel very bumpy because a teen might not always be ready for it. A teen might continue to be dysregulated. But there's an analogy of the anchor and the harbor. So if you view yourself as the harbor for your child and you are strong enough, grounded enough, and spacious enough, I suppose, you have the capacity to hold whatever it is that they're going through and give them those kind of the thresholds. But in order to be the harbor, you need to anchor yourself first. So there's the priority. So how it looks, it usually doesn't involve a whole lot of talking. It involves supreme listening. You have to let somebody get to the end of the sentence and finish it and then pause, because I think as parents, sometimes we love to jump in and fix or correct or steer another way. So we really have to listen to them and notice for ourselves when we're jumping to judgment, which we do, when we're beginning to move from a place of fear. That's what co-regulation is. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Can I be myself? Warts and all. I'm asking for this, but I'm so dysregulated, I'm going to do it in a really ugly way. And when I come back down again, we don't want to stamp out any feelings. We know that's not a good thing. So we want them to come back down again, and then they open up to the possibility of, okay, maybe things are not that critical. Maybe this is not the situation I thought it was. That's what co-regulation is, you being the harbor. And it takes a lot of practice because we were not shown how to do this.
I
Most of us
agree
didn't get it.
100%. Yeah.
Mm.
We don't have a blueprint to regulate teenage because our upbringing was very, very different from the upbringing that we are advocating now, or in fact going through right now.
Yeah.
Borrowing from that, Pooja, as an educator and as a parent, what do you think is missing about what teens are going through right now? What parents are missing, in understanding them?
I think from my learning, being a mother, that we should, like, I agree with, co-regulation, and therefore I would say that we should spend time together rather than making them sit and giving them what we call as the gyan or the preaching that we do. I think, we should find a sweet spot. Maybe it is playing badminton together, maybe it is listening to the music together, going for a movie together, going for a stroll together, maybe making the favorite food together at home. So I think when we do an activity wherein both of us or three of us, depending on if we have two at home, we find some sweet spot and then we break the conversation, because that's the time when we are bonding really well.
Right.
And let them say whatever they are saying and be a very good listener. I think that really helps, because I remember when I was out of the house with my girls on a holiday, they opened up the best with me. Like, I mean, amongst the time that I have spent together. And we remember that trip, though it is not related to this talk, probably. But I feel parenting is parenting at the end of the day. So, what I feel is that during these times, we should find time, though it is very difficult for us as parents, but we should find time, particularly if we are mother or father to a teenager, because it is very important to bond. Because when that bonding happens, then only the sharing comes in, and that sharing, when it comes in, then only we are in a state, then we can help them out. Otherwise, they would not open up. They want to be in their room.
Yeah.
They would go on for hours together and be in sessions with their friends, but they would not have time for us as parents. So I mean, it's tough. And like in university as educator, if I talk about, and so as I see in schools as well, a lot of wellness tech talks are going on. So it's an eye opener for us as teachers, as parents, both. And so as it is for the students as well. as children as well, because there are certain things we don't know. Like, I remember the talk that we had. The psychologist on the other side was saying, breathe, breathe. Though we might think that it's a simple thing, breathe. Like, why is she saying so many times? But she started one with pause, breathe 3 times, take a deep breath. And when you actually do a deep breath, you understand, yes, it's time to take a pause and then begin.
Yeah, but I totally agree on to it. These are some things that I think a lot of us parents, we just kind of put behind us. We don't really understand that how important breathing is. Louise, is it I mean, for some parents who are dealing with really stressful situations with teens at home, is it too late? Or is it something like, is it too late to restore, the calm and the rhythm at home? Or can it be restored even now? And if yes, then some practical insight, that some practical tools as to how can we.
Um, yes, it's absolutely possible to restore the rhythm at home, um, even if you have not approached parenting in this way. I think a lot, well, for context, I have an 11-year-old and a 3-year-old. That 11-year-old did not get this style of parenting from me when he was younger. Absolutely not. Um, and I suppose when we start discovering about the importance of attachment and the way we approach scenarios with our children, if you have more than one child, you sometimes realize, whoops, I did not do that with the first child. Is this too late? Have I messed them up? And thankfully, you absolutely have not. Relationships can always be repaired. Attachments are something that is fluid. So even if you have had, I mean, it's going to take work, but even if you have had quite a bumpy, tempestuous interaction or style of interaction with a particular child for a couple of years, and you have decided in your head, well, they're stubborn and they're strong-minded, and they always do this, they always do that. It is not too late to turn that around. And really, young people, children, they want connection so much. And they
Yeah.
might be spiky in the beginning, but if you move away from that place of ego and you forget, you accept your child for exactly who they are, not who you want them to be, not what you wish for them or you had wished for yourself, because it's all well intentioned. But if you can step away from that and see them for who they really are, it's really life changing. And I think if you have, for example, in the current situation, have had a bumpy first 2 or 3 weeks to this, and everyone's been really strung out and stressed out, there's no harm in sitting down and saying, I want to put my hands up and say, I have not handled this whole thing very well. And there are some changes I want to make going forward. And I would really appreciate you telling me what it is that you need. Don't underestimate the value of that for a child, even if they're prickly, for a teenager to hear that coming from their parent. That's important to hear. So you can really turn things around.
Because I really think a lot of parents do have that. It's easier to do the repair work, as you said, with the younger ones, because
Mhm.
I mean, they get all mushy and they're like, it's okay, mommy, or it's okay, daddy. But when it comes to our tweens and teens, I think a lot of us hold back onto that repair work. There is a certain ego, maybe, that comes, or
Mhm.
there is a certain, I know it will not work attitude that comes. So I think that needs to be challenged for now. So, absolutely. So, Pooja, as a mom to teenagers when you were raising them, did this ever be a conflict, or were you always that educator slash mom who always had a rhythm oriented house?
It was challenging, to be honest, in the beginning. Not only at home, like, because first I started as an educator, so I would want discipline to the core, to be honest. In first year, while I was teaching, I would want kids to be like very, very disciplined, because that's the way, because I had studied in convent and been in too much discipline. But at home, my parents were not too much into, like, they let it be as we want it to be.
Right.
So, like, after a year of teaching, I realized, no, I don't think this is going well with me or the students. So, from the way, and when I talk about it, I would say that it is not only what you say, because I am into media and communication. So, speaking, the tone, the choice of words, the way you carry, everything is important. So if you look stern, of course, you're not accessible. So how will the kid come to you and share anything? Because we should remember that we are second mothers in a way, because the kid spends 8 to 10 hours with us.
Mm.
So if we have to give them that accessibility, that they would come and share, and that happens like on an everyday basis. um, Many a times the teenagers, they come and they pour their heart out, and they are so venomous about when they're sharing about their parents. And we sometimes feel that we are in a good position, that we are able to help them cope up with that, and tell them that while your parents are doing this thing, it is for your good that they are saying something like this. So I mean, it happens. They are so full many a times. And
Yeah.
as a mother and as educator, I would only say that uh, we talk so much about organic food for our health. I would say we as parents, we have to be organic in terms of our communication as well. Like,
Correct.
we should train our brain. We can't say no, because I mean, while we are saying that no chemical food we want to consume, but then our brain also needs to be, free of all the things that are there. So we need to make our brain also more organic, so that not only like that will be there in the house, in the society, in the community as a whole. So I would emphasize very much on, organically building our brains as parents, as educators, so that we can. I know it's a tough thing. It's not easy. But yes, I mean, we have to try somewhere. I believe so.
I'm sure it's a work in progress always,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just feel that, yes. So as a parent, how are you, Pooja? Like as a parent, do you do a lot of repair work? I'm sure that sometimes they have a way. Our kids
Yes.
have a way to pushing our buttons, and So do you believe in repair work with them?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But again, I believe in every time is not the right time, especially when you are dealing with the teenagers. When they are venting out, when they are angry, that's the time for us to pause, breathe.
Mm.
And probably we should look for a weekend or another day, a walk or a stroll, to do the repair work, because that repair work is important. We can't just say that they will cope up with it on their own, because they are now teenagers. I think the fact that they are not yet adults is the fact that we have to help them out. So I think repair work is definitely important, but we have to find the right time for it. We should not be in a hurry. Parenting is not about, that you can finish the job. The job never ends, actually. So
Yes.
just wait for the right time, I would say, and do the things. So then you will be able to pass on the thing, whatever thoughts you want to pass on to them, translate to them. They will be translated well, I would say.
Amazing. This kind of brings us to the end of this. But if there was one thing that you would like to leave our parents with, Louise, we'll start with you. What would you say as a parenting coach and as a parent? Because sometimes both of these roles are not similar. So, what would you say to parents navigating this phase right now?
I would say not to be afraid of conflict, because conflict, particularly in adolescence and the teen years, is not the problem. Disconnection after the conflict is. So I think the focus on availability, so we can make sure, very much like what Dr. Pooja was saying about repair and, choosing that time. Disconnection after conflict is a problem, but conflict itself isn't. So make sure you're available as much as possible to facilitate that repair.
Amazing. I think I'm going to stick with that. And how about you, Pooja? If you could give the parents navigating this one advice from you.
I think self-care, because we expect too much from us, which we shouldn't. Things will happen. First, care for yourself. I think then you can care for your kids, for your community, and everybody else, I believe.
Amazing. Yes. That brings us to the end of this podcast. And honestly, if there's one thing this conversation reminds me is that parenting in uncertain times isn't actually about having all the answers. It's more about staying connected, being more communicative, and just trying to regulate or co-regulate, even when things feel unclear. Because for our children, feeling understood might matter more than just everything being figured out, correct? So, thank you very much, ladies, for joining me in this. And I hope that the chat that we had benefits a lot of our parents. For me, I think it's going to stay with me for a long time. I think I'm just bracing all of it as it comes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.